Hello, I'm Freddie Castillo, hardware engineer here at Google. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Aarón Sánchez to Talks at Google. And give me a minute because there's a lot of accomplishments here. Aarón Sánchez is an award-winning chef, TV personality, author, and philanthropist. He's the chef, owner of Johnny Sánchez in New Orleans, and a judge on Fox's hit culinary competition series MasterChef and MasterChef Junior. He's also the partner and creative director of Cocina, the first online content platform dedicated to celebrating Latin lifestyle through its vibrant culinary culture. Aarón has starred in multiple Food Network shows, most notably as a judge on Chopped and Chopped Junior. He was host of Cooking Channel's Emmy-nominated series Taco Trip and has prepared numerous other shows, including Iron Chef and The Best Thing I Ever Ate. Additionally, Aarón hosted 2 Spanish-language shows on Fox Life, Minutos con Aarón and Motochefs. A third-generation cookbook author, Aarón has written 2 cookbooks, La Comida del Barrio, Simple Food, Big Flavor, as well as a memoir, Where I Come From, Life Lessons of a Latino Chef, which I want to have here. In 2016, Aarón founded the Aarón Scholarship Fund, an initiative empowering aspiring chefs from the Latin community. The Aarón Sánchez Scholarship Fund provides recipients with full culinary scholarships to the International Culinary Center in New York City and ongoing mentorship. Welcome, Aarón Sánchez.
Freddie, what a rousing and unbelievable introduction. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of our Google familia that's tuning in and being part of this unbelievable event. I want to say first to you, Freddie, thank you so much. I know that you and I are both from El Paso. We have a really a deep love and appreciation for where we're from, de donde somos, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me here.
Absolute pleasures on this side. Yeah, I'd done the original pitch, and I'm like, hey, we gotta get 2 people from El Paso talking together. Like this is good.
Yes, indeed. I love it.
I'll start off with I'm dying because it's rare that I get the chance to talk to somebody who is from El Paso, and also to talk about something that is kind of unique that I try to tell people here about it, and I show pictures, they don't get it, and I'm talking about Chico's Tacos.
Yes, indeed.
Chico's Tacos is something, I mean, it's the labels, it's an El Paso tradition. I remember Chico's Tacos as sort of 2 things. One, it's the tacos themselves, which, kind of a low-cost food. People go there on the weekends after football games. And then the second part of it was always about the experience of being there. There was just something about the atmosphere and the food.
Mm-hmm.
But I show people, it's like, hey, what's so special about Chico's Tacos? And I try to show them, like, this is what it looks like. And then you get that repulsive, like.
Yeah. I try to tell people all the time. And, on one of my shows, I think on Taco Trip, we featured it. And it's one of those things like I wish I didn't know how they actually make it. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like this mystery of this and this allure of having this iconic dish that you don't know why it tastes so good. And it's really simple, straightforward stuff, It's ground beef. It's very mild seasoning. It's a bunch of senoras in the back that they still roll everything by hand, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is really amazing. And then it's like this beautiful sort of convergence of, border cooking, the taste of gringos in Mexico all in one. And it's a very interesting thing. So basically, it's these little flautas, right? Or these little crispy, like the gringos say, taquitos. and they're floating in this sort of very watery tomato broth. And then they have cheap cheese on top, like that orange nuclear thing that's on top. And you don't know why it tastes so good, but it's delicious. And it's one of those things that's so unique. And my travels around the country, I've seen like roast beef sandwiches that have been soaked in their own juices. And that's a particular Chicago thing. Or I've been to Philadelphia where they do this broccoli rabe and pork sandwich that is something so unique to them. And it has this sort of history and this beautiful story behind it. And so that's us. That's ours is Chico's Tacos, basically.
Yeah, I agree. And when the temperatures, it's finally starting to cool off here, and it's like I'm starting to get that inner craving coming up for like, once that cooler weather kicks in, I'm getting that craving for Chico's again. The owner made a kind of interesting choice. Chico's never came out of El Paso, and I'm sure he got that question 100 times about, well, why don't you expand it? But he kept it there, never expanded it.
Yes, and then look, we know the family. I know that there's a couple of the brothers had certain restaurants within El Paso proper, but it's never been that. It's been about something that is kept internally, which I appreciate actually, because I don't know if it would translate. I think it would lose its magic. It would lose its luster. There's somewhere else to say, what the hell is this? But
Right.
you know what I'm saying? But us in El Paso or anybody that's gone through there would know that. It's kind of like if you ever had a Whataburger. You know what I'm saying? Like you go to Texas, you have a Whataburger. It has mustard. It has mustard. It doesn't have mayo. You know what I'm saying? Like those kind of small things are important.
Yeah, I won't even get to the Whataburger versus In-N-Out battle. That's for another show.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even get me started.
The last thing on Chico's before I move on to the book, because I know that's what I want to hit on the most. Did you know, maybe it was about 4 years ago, Chico's had changed the cheese, the
Yes.
ingredients of the cheese. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, unless you're from El Paso, no one would understand but it made front page news. I remember when it came out. And I think they went from something that was a kind of like a Velveeta type cheese to something that I think was more of a cheddar.
Yes, and it caused uproar in El Paso, because we don't have a lot of cool things that happen in El Paso except me coming into town or Lee Trevino or some of the basic stuff, But that apparently was so controversial that it deserved the front page. So, and I agree. Look, my whole point is when you have that cheese and the way what makes it so magical is that it's that particular grate. It's like this very thin pencil, like 1/36 of an inch shred of that cheese that just kind of hugs the warmth of the taco and it just kind of encases it and almost cocoons it. And that's the magic of that. So if you mess with fat levels and cheeses and you start messing with the cheese, we're going to mess with the whole experience. So, you know what I mean? It's that important.
It certainly had a kind of ritual aspect to it. Like you said, It was like first you're presented with it, but it's like the completion of the ritual is you ate the tacos, you ate the flautas, you got to drink the sauce. And like that was the completion of the ritual.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm from Central, right? In El Paso, like next to Loreto. And we had our Chico's Tacos right on Montana, literally half a mile from where my family homes is, and we had to shut it down because it was a little bit too much of that, nefarious sort of element would come late night, and we had to kind of shut it down because it was just a little too intense. But with that being said, Chico's Tacos is still striving, and if you ever get to El Paso, please seek it out. It's wonderful.
100%. I'll move on to the book. I got the chance to do a read the past couple of weeks. Fantastic read in terms of just explaining your life story, but you're doing it and you're sampling certain things, certain key events that happen all along. The reason to bring up Chico's before is sort of lead into this first question. Right at the intro, you mentioned something about there comes a moment where you stop trying to rebel against being typecast or stereotyped, that you have this ancient homing system, you call it, seizing something inside you. And it's really interesting perspective as many of us, I think, sort of want to go against stereotypes, but you felt a calling towards it. I wonder if you can expand on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Freddie. I think it's easy to compartmentalize people because it allows us to be able to navigate life, right? If someone's different from who you are, if you're able to say, oh, well, this is sort of what I understand, some surface knowledge, like I'll give you an example. I wash my floors with Fabuloso, right? We clean our clothes with Suavitel. We do certain things that are culturally significant and to us, and that's just what I was brought up. But how you bring other people into that world is up to you, you know? And I think it's really important for us to be able to drop barriers, to drop all that. I'm a citizen of the world, baby. You know what I mean? I happen to be Mexican American, but I embrace all of it, and I want everyone to share that with me. And I think that's really what I was trying to get at with that statement, is in the sense that you have to have a foundation, and you have to have something that you're prideful, that you're proud of. And I think everyone needs to establish that and figure out what that is, you know. And I think once you have that, then the world opens up to you in beautiful ways.
Another aspect, I don't know, where we sort of maybe have commonality.
Mm-hmm.
Both from El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
Both our fathers took to alcohol. My father in particular was, I mean, when it was payday on Fridays,
Yeah.
it was straight to the bar, and you would hope he wouldn't spend the whole paycheck.
Exactly.
And he had, I mean, there was one aspect that I think you mentioned in your father that I can completely relate to, which was the sense of duty. So
Yeah.
even though, like, regardless of whatever happened on the weekend, he would always show up to work on Monday morning, was never late, never missed it. And it really got me reflecting on sort of these values that, you know, there's both good and bad things that we reflect on from our parents. And so what are some
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, of course. Oh no, and I'm happy that you brought that up, because look, part of my whole book is it's not, I'm not ashamed, you know. And I think as Latinos, we're so prideful, right? We don't want to admit to any wrong. You know, there's a superficial way of putting forward the image of your family that it's going to be all good, but
Right.
people know the insides and outs. It's all good. And I think for me, it was important to have this book be a cautionary tale, but also an inspirational tale, you know? And I think that's important. You know, when you grow up in an environment where, you know, people are indulging and maybe priorities are skewed, you know, whether it's your family, your professional life, or whatever. And I fell victim to that. I'm okay with saying that, you know? I felt victim to all of that. And it's okay. And you know what? How do you learn from those lessons? And you know, every obstacle creates an opportunity, kind of thing. You got to move forward with that. And I think it's, you know, it's interesting that you say that, because it's very cultural, you know, to say it's all good. You know what I mean? It's all good. But my whole thing is this: I don't question people about their behavior sometimes, because for me, it's about, you have to find the inner strength, you know. And I don't want to spend my life telling people you should do this, because I don't want people telling me that either. I want to live my life the way I want, in a responsible, cool way, making sure I treat people with respect and honesty, and taking care of others. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it gets to a little bit of muddy waters. You know what I'm saying? When you start telling people how they should live their lives, because it's like, yo, I've been here. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Well, and admitting that there's faults within families, which every family has, it's
Exactly.
not a sign of weakness. It's being vulnerable. That's a completely different thing.
I agree 100%. 100%. And you know what? It's interesting. I've never, I think about a lot of times when I was growing up, and I lost my dad when I was 13. So I had, my mom became my dad and my mom. And my whole Latino upbringing changed. I didn't have to deal with a lot of the machismo behavior and some of that things that, you know, tend to be big parts of our culture. So for me, I gravitate to the art. I gravitate to cooking and serving others through food and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's interesting how events in your life change who you end up becoming, obviously, but, you know, for better or worse, I think.
Yeah, no, it's, and I appreciate the fact that you brought up the machismo aspect, which is still especially prevalent for our parents' generation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something. There's certainly aspects that maybe should be overcome. One of them is that hard love.
Yeah.
A father that you know, he took care of business, but he wouldn't say love you, but you know he did. You knew he did through the service, and so that's certainly something that's like I've noticed has changed with my own family. Is now I'm certainly
Yeah.
softer, but you know, it's just learning.
Yeah, but imagine, Freddie, like when I grew up, we could not get up out of the table till my dad finished eating.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, imagine that now, and you know, Everyone's on their little cell phones and all that. None of that happened in our house.
Yeah, it's different. Right?
When El Viejo, when he finished, we can get up. And we'd have to sit there and whatever. And that's cool. Actually, I think we need to get back to that. I think, and it doesn't have to be dad. It could be mom who
Right.
says, you know what, I'm going to take my time and not get up and let's slow down a little bit. So, yeah, man.
Aarón, just talking about moving towards the aspect of overcoming challenges, which is, I think, one of the key themes to your book, because it's nothing but, hey, had a change, wasn't brought on by myself, brought on by external factors, and I had to overcome something else. And I mean, the book is continuous changes and having to overcome kind of that next thing, that next step. With respect to, I think, was one of your more key changes, which is sort of when you brought onto the Food Network and starting to do that. I mean, what things needed to be sort of overcome? You mentioned the aspect of not being comfortable in front of the camera. That was a completely new thing to you. But what other things might have been challenges and things that you had to evolve and sort of learn from at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of it was initially when I started doing this, it was like, okay, so you're going to be our token Latin chef. So we're going to do a Cinco de Mayo. They couldn't even pronounce Mayo. Oh, we're going to do a Cinco de Mayo situation and all this kind of stuff. Or we're going to do a Mexican Christmas. And all these kind of things started to happen. And to be very honest, my dream was always to have my own restaurant. That's all I ever wanted to do, is to be the captain of my own ship and make sure that I cooked food that spoke to me and hopefully people enjoyed. And then the mission changed. You know, once I started doing television, I started becoming this representative for our culture and our community, and that was a huge responsibility. And you know, and a lot of that initially is why I sort of, you know, went through bouts of depression and different things, because I didn't understand the importance, or was I ready for it, you know? And I think that's something that was very interesting about my journey initially, you know? And from that, I think it's important to understand that, you know, chefs now, we are not just cooks. We're, you know, we're speakers. We're beacons for our cultures and our food. And now we're not being in the back anymore. Now we're up in the front. And I was part of that. You know, I was part of this whole celebrity chef craze that took off 20 years ago. And I remember I used to get paid this, and now I get paid this. You know what I'm saying? And that changed a lot with the advent of television, and it changed with all of that, you know. And it's a very interesting time that I was part of, and now where we are now.
I'm glad you touched on that. I think there was a note in your book. I think when it was, I think you had made the move to the Bay Area, and you just had made the observation that, like, hey, in the kitchen, all Latinos, mostly from Mexico, and it was just this recognition of, hey, they're making great stuff, but they're not at the forefront.
Yeah.
And is it just the time when you mentioned earlier? Are you seeing that change? Are things like, I mean, YouTube especially, but making it easy for people to sort of demonstrate their talents? Are you seeing that?
Yeah. And I'm happy that you mentioned it. And look, I'm going to use tactful language right now, because this is part of my evolution and my growth. But it's like there's a lot of self-anointed experts, right? You know what I'm saying? You got to put the time in, like anything else, to be good at something. And just because you come up on a particular platform and say my chicken soup is the best, you know, how are we substantiating that? Like, what is the pedigree behind that? You know, what have you gone through to allow you to speak from that point of power and influence? Really? And I think that's really important. Look, I'm sure influencers and people that speak to certain subject matters probably have that, and I don't know about it. But when it comes to cooking, you have to put the time in. I'm sorry, that's just my humble opinion. And you know, you know what I mean? You got to go through it. You know, and I just don't know either way.
Right, because it's just, I mean, it's sort of both ways. Meaning, hey, the platform is there, so accessibility is good, but it also makes it easy for anybody to demonstrate whatever they want and make claims that may not be true. I'll throw in something else that may be a positive spin. Is I'm glad that this is here because it has allowed maybe the older generation, and I'm seeing a lot of videos too of maybe kids videotaping their parents who are doing meals that they grew up with, and they might not be doing it for the sake of getting views, but they're probably doing it for the sake of documenting something that is going to be lost.
Yeah, and I agree, Freddie. And by the way, I'm not. There's no hating going on here.
Yeah,
I support all of that. It's
right.
my whole thing is that you're right, and and it's so funny that you just mentioned that because I was talking to someone earlier about, take your time because on Saturdays when your grandmother and your grandparents call you, you always find an excuse not to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it means the world to them. Like you're gonna roll up in there and say hello to them and take
Right.
that time to catalog them and have them tell you stories. And Google is great like that because you guys do a fantastic job of being able to catalog people's stories, and make it accessible to the world. And I think that's important. And I implore everyone to be able to take that time and engage your elders and make sure that all these beautiful stories and these life lessons are not lost. That's all. And I think that's really neat. And I think you touched upon it in a beautiful way, Freddie, because I don't want these stories to go anywhere. I want them to be preserved for eternity.
Yeah, forever, absolutely.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Aarón, there's something that you mentioned towards I'll go to this one. Towards the end of the book, you mentioned summing up sort of why you're here, why you ended up in this path. You said it's not where I come from. It's not a place. You said it's an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I spent some time thinking about like what does that mean really? It's not a place. It's an idea. And I thought it captured really well this sort of aspect that I face first, and especially first generation Latin Americans who have parents from different countries, so they're sort of in that in between. And I think you also mentioned in the book how you felt like when you're in Mexico, you weren't Mexican enough. Here in the
Yeah.
States, not American enough. Is that sort of part of that aspect as well?
Yeah, but absolutely. There's a great saying in Spanish: "Cuando pierdes tu lengua, pierdes tu patria." You have to continue with your Spanish. It's
Right.
very important. Like the way I navigate my life every day is that I speak Spanish half of my day, right? I have my family members, friends, colleagues, everybody. You have to do that.
Right.
It's super important. And the opportunities that life brings you because you're able to connect with your language, it cannot be overstated. It is so important. And I've been able to keep up with that, and it's helped me to have that connection to where I'm from. Yes, when I go to Mexico, do they know I live in the States? Absolutely. Do I give a shit what they think about? No, because I'm actually a bigger ambassador for our culture up here in the States. You know what I mean? You're down there doing your thing,
Right.
and it's all good, but I'm actually promoting it on a higher level over here. You know what I'm saying? So you can't get caught up in all that.
The details of it.
The details of it. So I think that's important to really sort of delineate and make clear. But look, I am who I am. This is my story. But don't get caught up all in that. Don't be caught up on how you're being defined. But just do your best to pay homage and come back there and rescue roots and do all that good stuff. I think that's important.
To touch on kind of what the biggest event last year, this year again, COVID, and just sort of the immense change that's brought about for the restaurant industry with so many places having to close down, and then there was a sort of call it a resurgence or something, an idea that I hadn't really heard about until COVID came about, this idea of ghost kitchens. And something that is kind of unique to the situation where, make sure I got this one right, but a ghost kitchen doesn't have a storefront necessarily, or doesn't have anywhere to sit. It just exists virtually. And I'm curious to get your take, because this is sort of making the news in terms of almost a second wave of where maybe the industry is headed. I just want to see what you think about that.
For me, it's a little bit challenging because I travel a lot. For what we do as a team, and I'm in hotels all the time, and I feel like all of a sudden there's excuses why there's no towels or there's no water in my room because it's COVID. Or you go onto a plane and people are the flight attendants are in a pissed off mood because of what? You know what I mean? We should be happy that we're back to work, right? And you think about how certain industries have been bailed out, and I don't want to make this a big deal, but independent restaurants have really had a difficult time getting the proper resources and funding that they need to get to a better place. And I tell everybody all this all the time. All the places that you went to for your high school graduation, your parents went for their anniversaries, where they got married, a lot of those places are not ever coming back. And those and people that are in political positions, chances are their children or themselves have worked in restaurants at some point in their life. But that's not important right now. You know what I'm saying? We need that kind of love to support something is so important in the fabric of who we are as a country, which is your local restaurants, and all the convivial moments that happen through one's life in a restaurant setting. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it's important that, we recognize all that. We don't have to cast blame or be pissed off about it. It's just what can we do to create awareness and make sure, hey man, let's look out,
Appreciate what you said. So go out there, be present, know what's around you, and support local.
Yeah, and go to your restaurant and
Yeah.
order from them directly.
Right.
Because the money goes to them. You know what I mean? And it just, I'm sorry, I was able to go to nice schools because my mom had an independent restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I got to meet a lot of people that influenced my life because that was my world, So I just think it's important to remember all that, and that's all. I just don't want these old restaurants to go away.
I don't just even a personal. I gained a lot of weight working from home through COVID, and sort of the next question I want to ask you about is the adjustments that I suppose in light of recent focus, let's say on trying to improve health, and in particular for Latinos, since we're at a higher disposition to get diabetes. That's also my dad also had that, but the adjustments that we can do. And at the same time, trying to strike that balance of keeping things traditional, but hey, maybe we're modifying certain things, certain ingredients, or certain things that we do to make things healthier. Does that become sort of a kind of a focus, or how do you feel about?
Yeah. I mean, look what I have here. This is my house. Hold on. And this is no bullshit. Look.
Beautiful.
So we have vegetables and fruits at our house all the time, right? So we're snacking, and before, like my dad used to have the little Debbie's and the Nilla wafers and all that stuff. So we don't, yeah. So we don't do that. We snack on fresh foods because I'm susceptible to that. I've worked my whole life from 11 a.m., 10 a.m. to midnight. So I get home, I forgot to eat. So there's bad habits that come, right? So always have some fresh vegetables, some tortillas, some cheese, make a little fresh little salad or something that could be light. I think we need to, Mexicans and Latinos and all of us need to adopt a little bit more of the Mediterranean diet in the sense that you have your proteins and your carbs during the day when you can burn it off.
Mm-hmm.
At night, you should have something light. And it's that simple. You know what I mean? A little escabeche, you know what I mean? With some pickled jicama and jalapenos and cauliflower and something simple that you can just snack on. But yeah, the idea of eating heavy at night is no bueno. You know what I mean?
I may sneak in the chicos every once in a while, but I hear what you're saying.
yeah, exactly.
Let me before we go into the demo, let me throw a last one at you. You had mentioned this, I think, in a previous interview, that if you weren't doing this profession of being a chef, you said you would be a mariachi singer.
Yep, indeed.
Where did that come from exactly, and who, if any, would have been your idol
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Hold on, hold on. That's an open-ended question, okay? Because now you're gonna make me want to sing, Fred.
Let's do it.
Me cansé de rogarle, me cansé de decirle que yo sin ella de pena muero. No, so here's the deal. In our family, we're typical Northerners. My family from Sonora, Chihuahua, that area, and we all think we can sing. You know what I mean? Whether we can do it or not is up for debate. But we have the same enthusiasm as always, right? So I just love the idea of being able to come together with family, letting your guard down, and be able to sing for a little bit and just have fun with it. You know what I mean? I'd have to practice like anything else, but you know what I mean? That would be neat. It's
No,
something about, yeah.
I hear you. There's no. I'm not gonna claim I'm any chenter with inside me. No way.
Exactly. Exactly. I hear you, baby. All right, so
I appreciate the talk. I'm gonna transition over. You got an amazing guac that you're gonna show us. I'm gonna leave it to you, Aarón. Uh, I'll be coming back for some more questions from the audience, but I think now we're gonna go ahead and start the demo. So whenever you're ready.
of course, not to worry. Thank you, Freddie. So look, we're doing something that is so ubiquitous, like the guacamole. But I feel everyone should know how to do it in a different way. And I think in the effort of making something more delicious, you have to know some sort of interesting techniques that I think will make it even that better, right? So one of the things that I was frustrated with when I started eating or enjoying guacamole was, you'd get like a piece of onion every now and then, or you get like a little piece of jalapeno or whatever, but the bite wouldn't be even and consistent, right? You'd kind of have it all over the place. If you were lucky to get that little piece of onion or that little piece of whatever that spoke to you, it was a magical bite. So basically, what we started to think about is how can we make it better, right? And this is not necessarily traditional, so I don't want anybody to get upset about it. It's not. It's not about that. It's about creating something that just is delicious, right? So what we have here is we have some beautiful aguacates from the beautiful state of Michoacan, which I think makes the best limes and the best avocados anywhere in Mexico. They're stouter and a little bit kind of creamier than your California Hassets, but they're delicious nonetheless. All right, so what are we going to do to impart some flavor here, right? So we call that the restaurant a kit, right? So basically, it's just this idea of taking some onion, all right, and then in Mexico we use white onion. We don't use the Spanish or yellow onion per se. If you go to see it in the mercado, have like a little stalk on it. Sometimes called white border onion. You'll see it also known as that. And the idea being here is that you want to be able to get some of that flavor from the onion and also have that sort of permeate and make an influence in all of the wonderful sort of dressing or the salsa in the actual guacamole. Okay, so here and the big difference is I use chile serrano as opposed to a chile jalapeno. This is kind of like the devious older brother of the jalapeno. It has a little bit more heat. I think it has a little bit more of that herbaceous note that I dig and I really love. So I'm going to put some of that, make sure all the seeds are in there. I'm going to take a nice little handful, a puño de cilantro. Okay, no biggie. That's going to go in here. I'm going to put just a little bit of water as well, just to make sure it all rock and rolls and gets happy. And then I'm going to put the lime juice. Okay, so you want to be generous with it, depending on the ripeness of your limes, This one's a big one, so I'm going to be able to put everything here in one shot. All right. So beautiful fresh citrus. Okay. All that goes in here. Cool. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of Mexican oregano. Now, this is my secret weapon, okay? Now, a lot of people don't use Mexican oregano. It's more like a wild marjoram. My mom's family in Sonora and Chihuahua, their ranch, all the cattle used to graze on this beautiful Mexican oregano. So it had this very subtle flavor of this. So it really reminds me of being there in Mexico in the summer. So, all right, cool. So we got that there. We're gonna put a good amount of salt. And then all we're gonna simply do is puree this, okay? Yep, I was just testing it, making sure it was all good. All right, here we go. And now we're gonna just do a little simple. Here we go. And the idea is that you wanna just puree this and just make like a little, like this unbelievable sort of liquid of flavor with the cilantro, the onion, the Mexican oregano, all that good stuff. Lime. Good. All right. So here we are. Beautiful, beautiful, beautifuls. I'll put this right over here. I'm going to give it a quick little taste. See where we are with heat. Beautiful. All right. So now that we have that, I'm going to put all this good stuff over here. And then I'm going to start to dice a couple of ingredients. Okay? All right. So this is important. Aguacate down, right? Put salt on it right away. Why is that important? Because that's going to bring out the moisture, right? It's going to allow the mashing to happen a lot simpler. We're using a molcajete, right? The beautiful old school blender, right? And there's a beautiful tradition in Mexico when there's a woman that's going to be about to be married. It's very typical for an older señora to hand down a molcajete to her that's been seasoned or amansado. It's sort of a way of saying, I hope you have beautiful salsas in this molcajete in a beautiful family structure. You know what I mean? Because the salsas are going to do that for you. Okay? Okay. No big deal. All right. So now that we have that, avocado mash. And then here's a couple of important things when it comes to guacamole. I don't refrigerate our guacamole. Why is that important? Because when you refrigerate guacamole, it makes it seem like you've made it hours ahead of time. You want it room temperature. Avocado needs to be room temperature. So always try to keep it out and do it as much as you can before your guests come over. Okay? So that's a very important part. Okay? So now we're going to add a little bit of our beautiful little kit or seasoning mix. Okay? And then what we're going to simply do is add some fresh tomato. And you want to be able to use all of the seeds and all the wonderful ribs of the actual tomato. So I'm using Roma tomato, and which is the ideal one for this. Okay? Okay? And if you wanted to put some extra fresh diced onions, this is al gusto. Okay? This is up to you guys. Okay? Cool. So now, all I'm going to simply do is incorporate this and fold it all in. So reminding you that we have this beautiful mix of the lime, the oregano, the onion, and the chile serrano. And this is going to kind of make this guacamole really sing. And I also didn't mash it very much. I didn't mash it too much because I like some of that texture. Okay. Now, this is where you guys can have fun at home, okay? You can actually, let's quick do this. So, what you can do here is if you wanted to put all the garnishes at tu gusto, you can do that, okay? So, traditionally, you put some totopos or fried, corn chips, or if you wanted to put mango, you can put papaya, whatever you want. There's no rules with this. I like a little bit of radish. And then just some thin slices of it, okay? Okay. And then you can just, cut them into little strips. Cool. That's a beautiful little color contrast as well. You can take some queso cotija. Beautiful. That can go right on top. If you wanted to put champulines or some grasshoppers or maybe some hormigas or some ants, you can do that as well. So the possibilities are endless, okay? And this is what it's all about. Making a guacamole that seems very rudimentary and very traditional and simple, but there is technique that can be experienced and realized if you just are happy about it and you're passionate about it. And there you go, mi familia. What do you think about those apples or those avocados?
I was talking. I'm back. I didn't go anywhere. I was watching the whole thing. And I was talking with the talks group about this. This is. I know this is virtual, but there's something about when you're cooking something like that, and I can't even try it, man. It's torture.
Yeah,
It looks
yeah,
good.
it's no, and I hope you guys see a little bit of that technique. And this is how when you do traditional recipes and you're making your own without sacrificing the integrity of the dish. I think this is important for all the young cooks that are watching this. And the same thing with any facet of art. You can pay homage to a mentor, to something that inspires you, but try to keep the root of it intact, but also add your little spin to it. You know what I mean? And I think this is a perfect example of that.
Thanks for sharing that, Aaron. Just question for me because I know you're a fan of the Korean. Have you ever tried doing a Korean twist to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if there's one food that's akin to Mexican and Latin flavors, it's Korean. It's the idea of acid and the chile. Everything has these beautiful little pickles. And you go to a Korean restaurant, you get all these little fun little escabeches everywhere. And I love that kind of food because I get bored easily with just one dish.
Right.
I want to taste many different things. So, yeah, Roy Choi from LA, who's a dear friend of ours and one of our compadres. I think he does the best job of demonstrating that marriage.
That's awesome. Let's coordinate for the next season of Squid Game. Let's do something.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All about it, for sure, man.
I'll move on to the next part, which is questions from the audience. So I think they're supposed to
Yeah.
Let's do it. Got a question from Maya. How do you balance wanting to keep a family recipe a secret and sharing family legacy through food? Good question.
That is a great question. Maya, enough respect. I think it's important. Look, I think if you want to pay homage to your family, you have to let it loose. You have to free it. You have to liberate the recipe. Okay. Nowadays, we have so much access to information, and I think if there's anything positive that came from the pandemic, it's the idea of being able to cook at home more, and people's skills I think have gotten a lot better. We're living in the era of the foodie, where people are informed about good cutting boards and good knives and sea salts and olive oils and how to get those traditional ingredients to your home. So I think it's time to let loose a little bit. You don't have to share all the recipes, but share a couple. I think it's important.
Awesome. Question from Roberto. He said, growing up in Juarez, I really like the melting pot nature of the El Paso Juarez community. Yeah. What are some of the lessons you've learned back home that you think would be useful elsewhere?
I mean, there's so many. First of all, Juarez and El Paso and my upbringing were very interchangeable. On the weekends we went and visited with family in Juarez, and then we come home on Sunday afternoon, and we all get ready for school or daddy for work. So it was totally a bicultural way of being brought up. I think one of the things I've learned is the idea of the flour tortilla, the green chile, all these things, these ingredients that are very particular to the north of Mexico. It's something that I brought. The carne seca, all those different things that are very particular to us. The burritos and LNJs. Like burritos in the north of Mexico are just flour tortillas in carne salsa. There's no rice or cheese
No fillers.
or guac, nothing. It's just carne con salsa and a flour tortilla.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are the kind of things that I think are important to distinguish. And,
Oh man, that question's taking me back to getting burritos de barbacoa. I know just with some salt on top was the best thing ever.
Exactly.
On to the next one. Thanks, Aaron. Question from Jerry. Is there a food/dish that's just not worth making due to time or ingredients and just better to buy pre-made?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things. I mean, look, I'm going to advocate doing it yourself, obviously, 100%. I know that we're pressed with time and we have family obligations and work obligations that maybe not allowed to do that. But I think the idea of doing like a carne, like one of our traditional recipes that we make in our house is my tío's chile colorado, his pork chile colorado. And we make a bunch of that, and we make beans, and then we put them in plastic bags and we freeze them. And then when I'm done shooting or I'm done working, I can come home and I have that flavor at home. So that's what I would suggest. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Aarón.
Yeah, of course.
Got another one. Okay, this is from Camila. Any tips for families needing to prepare meals quickly at the end of busy days?
Well, a little bit of what I said, but the idea of doing, we have a crock pot in our house, right? And we're old school. My tío comes in and we have the frijoles already going with a nice little trocito de carne de puerco adobado or like a dry pork knuckle or whatever the hell it is, with the tomato and the onion and the garlic and the chile. And we have that. So that's always stewing all day long. And then we make, chile, or we make a salsa for the week. And that's what I suggest you do, because we do that here in house. And always have pickled vegetables, always have tortillas, have queso pendiente, and then you can make a little meal anytime you need.
I know there is plenty of that in old butter containers. It's like you couldn't find the butter when you need it. There's always some caldo or something from the day before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question from Farah. What are the ways that we could support Latinx chefs and restaurants if you live in an area where there aren't many or any?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what you could do is you can maybe go into your respective communities and find out, seek out that local Latin restaurant, Latin Mexican restaurant, whatever it is, and go in there and celebrate them and big them up on social media. Tell Google, hey, we got to give these guys some love. We're in a community in Oklahoma. We only have a small pocket of a Latin community. Go there and seek them out and put them on a pedestal. Or go to another bigger market that has a stronger Latin community and say, come over here and cook with me. Let's celebrate you. There's many ways you can do it. So.
Awesome. Yep. Good advice.
Thank you so much. No, Freddie, first of all, I just want to say this has been beautiful. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Hopefully my honesty and my candor. I hope
we love it.
I hope I haven't offended anybody. I think this is just me. I'm a person that speaks from the heart, and I'm very honest. I hope you guys don't. I hope you appreciate that. We weren't taken back, and I just want to say thank you to Google and to all the folks that are here, sort of tuning in and taking interest in what my life story is about and our food. And so I just say thank you. And
thank you, Aarón. This is. I knew this was going to be the hardest part of the session, which was the end, because it's. I get more feelings than I do sort of being able to convey a message. And what I feel is, I have incredible pride. One, to be able to talk to you. Two, as someone from the same hometown with very similar family structures and issues, and to have somebody that is upfront about both the good and the bad, and just to be able to say like, hey, yep, that's what it was, and some things I integrate, and that's the way I proceed, and just to have that sort of be at the front. You're not trying to hide anything, who you are, the culture, everything about it, and just the effort that you make to try to preserve the culture. It's an amazing privilege for me to be able to speak to you. Really.
Oh no, the privilege is mine, Fred. I remember a really great saying. I'm gonna leave you this. I remember when I went to a party and I was young, starting my career, and my mom was like, and she goes, "Look, I'm gonna teach you the way things work here. These are the ballers. These are the big influencers. La la la." And I was a kid. I was like 22, and she goes, "I go, Mom, I'm so privileged to meet these people. And she goes, no, they're privileged to meet you.
To meet you. Wow.
Always remember that. So the point being is have value for yourself. You are the beacon. You are it. You know what I mean? So, that was a great lesson my mama told me.
And no better way to end it, Aarón. Much
Thank
appreciated.
you very much.
Thank you again. Thanks, everyone.
Gracias, familia.
Gracias
Hasta
a todos.
luego.